Okay, so hello everyone. Sorry for last week. This week I'm here. So let's retake the study, elevating our thoughts first to God, our Almighty Father, and all these good spirits He sends in order to help us, to give us the teachings, the information we need to understand better the laws of nature, and also spiritual guide, guardian angel, or however we were to call him, which is helping each one of us in this journey. So thanks for this opportunity for being gathered today in order to study this book left by Allan Kardec, another missionary who came here on Earth. May we understand this mechanism of these interchanges between souls and humans and use them in the best possible way for fostering the evolution of our soul and evolution of whole humanity. So be it. So this chapter is, are there spirits? And it's indeed a quite interesting subject because there is no sense in talking about exchanges between souls and humans if we don't, for the one who don't believe that the soul exists, that the human has a soul and that his soul survives after death. So you have seen last time with Munir all these first arguments where Kardec is showing by reasoning, logical and philosophical reasoning, why it makes no sense. A lot of theories which has been emitted about make no sense, and showing also the consistency of the Spiritist body of knowledge concerning the soul. Okay, so he was questioning what becomes of future punishment and reward if you remove the specified places where they occur, which is the hell or the purgatory. And let me remove this. Instead, Kardec is stating, instead, we should state that souls derive their own happiness or misfortune from within themselves, that their fate depends on their moral condition, that the gathering together of good and attuned souls is a source of bliss, and that according to their degree of purity, they perceive and foresee things that are inaccessible to less evolved souls. So Kardec is here showing that everyone according to his own merits. So it's much better than being condemned for eternally to hell or whatsoever. No, it opens the doors for our work, for evolution, for betterment, and so on. And this simple difference between souls which are more evolved or happier than us is they have worked more than us, but we will get there as well sooner or later, according to the use of our goodwill and of our free will. Okay. So all the so-called punishment, which do not exist because God does not punish, but punishments are more to be understood as a consequence as per the natural law of things we are doing which are or not in harmony with the same natural laws. So if we do something wrong, for instance, if we hit with a hammer on one of our fingers, then the punition of God, or let's say the natural consequences, is it hurts. We have pain and so on. So this is how it has to be understood, and how the good things come back to the soul, as well as the bad things we are doing also have a reaction accordingly back to ourselves. Okay. Everyone will understand the matter without much difficulty. So each one according to his own merit. Additionally, states that souls only reach the highest degree through the efforts they put forth to improve themselves, and after having endured the necessary trials required for their purification. So we only reach the highest degree through our efforts. Very fundamental. And this effort, in order to motivate us to do effort, we go through difficulties and trials. And it's a little bit difficult to say, but when we are facing difficulties, that is when we more work, we more mobilize our inner resources to overcome these problems. And these so-called trials are necessary for accelerating our purification. Moreover, states that angels are human souls who have reached the highest degree, and that all souls will reach that degree if they so will, that the angels are God's messengers charged with overseeing the execution of the divine plan all over the universe, that they are joyous and fulfilling such a glorious mission, and you will have given their blissful state a purpose that is more attractive than the perpetual uselessness of internal contemplation. So angels are not special creation of God. They have started like us through the same difficulties, the same imperfections, and so on. And they reached the so-called state of angels because of their purification. And we will reach that state as well. We will also become angels one day, as the angels pass through the phases, the steps we are passing through right now. Okay, so this is also fully in line with a God which is infinitely just. Because if God would have created angels and then normal humans like us, I would be the first raising my hand. This is not fair. Why are they created perfect and not me? You know? No. So nothing of this. And the Spiritist body of knowledge is explaining this in a much more rational way. And it explains us also that the day when we will become an angel, according to our progress, we will also participate to the execution of these divine plans all over the universe, help in all the spirits which are humans or still with imperfection to become better and so on. And this is a mission. It's not I am at the right of God, so now I can rest for the eternity in this eternal contemplation. So it's totally useless. And the vision brought by the Spiritist body of knowledge is much, much more logical, consistent, and motivating. Continuing, Kardec finally explains that demons are merely the souls of evil individuals who have not yet purified themselves, but who, like all others, may finally reach the state of purity, and such will seem more in harmony with the justice and benevolence of God than the doctrine of beings who were created for evil and who are irrevocably doomed to it. Once more, therein lies what the most demanding reason, the most rigorous logic and common sense can accept. And indeed, these questions are very fundamental. I remember when I was educated Catholic, amongst the questions who I had and that did not find answer are exactly those. This one Kardec is mentioning here. Why separate creation? Why God could create evil or the devil for bothering us eternally and will never improve, and once we are in hell we never ever come out. This is all is absolutely inconsistent with an infinite justice and mercy of God in benevolence. So thanks to Spiritist body of knowledge, I could And so I got indifferent, so I don't care about those things because it has no meaning. So I was never rejecting God. But once I read the first time the Spirits book, in Portuguese, by the way, there I saw, here it looks much more consistent, much more solid than all these stories that are told to the children in order to make them quiet, and which do not anymore fit to people who like who are honestly asking to understand a little bit better. Munir?
Good morning, everyone. Charles, I just want to add, based on what you said, because it happened to me exactly the same way. I was raised Catholic, but then I wanted answers to some questions, and I found in Spiritism, and why this last sentence, Kardec shows us his trademark. He uses reason, logic, and common sense, and I think it appeals to a lot of us today, Spiritism, because of these elements. You see, we see reason, we see logic, and common sense in what Kardec, in the work of Kardec, and what he does. And I think that was very strong to me. You see.
Exactly. So this is why Kardec wrote also in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, unshakable faith is only the one who can face common sense and reason at every epoch of humanity. So
Yeah.
the blind faith, where you believe something because you are forced or strongly suggested to believe something without understanding, one day or the other can collapse everything. But a reasoned faith based on common sense and rigorous logic is much more solid.
Yeah.
You may admit that it may change because our understanding is also evolving. Our capacities to understand things is also progressing. A lot of times I hear people, no, spirit is body of knowledge answers to any question. That's wrong. We should never, ever tell something like this. It answers to a lot of questions, yes, but there are questions that are not answered, and for several reasons. First, because it's no time, not the time to understand it. Second, because we do not yet have the conditions with rigor. Our logic is not yet developed at a point we can understand those things, those questions. And this we need to have the humility to recognize it. But according to today's status of our understanding, a lot of answers came, and they are, as explained in this big paragraph we just finished today, and you started also last week. There are a lot of things that we can understand much better compared with the way it has been presented in the traditional Christian religion. Roger?
For me, I was raised in the Church of England, but it's very similar to the Roman Catholic. For me, I didn't question the logic, the principle of that you say of God raising, creating the devil and that sort of demonic structure. But as soon as I read about that logic, I have a very strong logical background. My business sense has always been very logical. I'm a computer person, very logical. And as soon as I came across that, it hit me very hard. It made total sense. I could immediately see that logic, and it just hit me straight away, the logic of it. And it was just so, I can't think of a better word. It was so beautiful, the logic of it.
Indeed, thank you for this. And that's why at the beginning we turn even a little bit too much enthusiastic, isn't it, when we discover that we can have apply rigorous logic and common sense to this type of questions. Because a lot of people say they refuse to associate beliefs with reason. I had a colleague. I have a colleague. I had a colleague in when I was working. He was also into Catholic study groups, and sometimes I asked him, "Okay, in your Catholic study groups, do you also use your intelligence as an engineer in order to understand the things?" No way. Faith is one thing, and logic is another thing. And Kardec brought this revolution, saying, "No. Why make this? I call it the Berlin Wall. Separate the brain in two parts. No, we can associate both, and this is really one of the revolutions Kardec brought in inducing us to make logical use rigorous logic and common sense also to these spiritual questions. And it's one of the revolution he brought and one of the characteristic of Spiritism. Well, and the Medium's book is also based, of course, there are a lot of revelations. The spirits are telling us a lot of things. God exists. Okay. But there are some arguments also to understand why God exists, what is the logic behind. What is the intimate nature of God? Then the spirits told, this you cannot understand. We do not understand. We can even less explain you with the limited vocabulary you have. So we need to stay humble. Okay, we progressed a lot in understanding spiritual matters, but indeed there are still a lot of questions on which we do not yet have the answer. We do not yet have also the conditions to understand them better. And then Kardec is continuing, as we have seen, the souls that populate space are more precisely what we call spirits, definition of words. Hence, spirits are merely human souls that have been freed of their corporeal envelopes. If spirits were created as separate beings, their existence would be more hypothetical. However, in accepting the existence of souls, we must therefore accept the existence of spirits, who are nothing more than souls. And if we accept the fact that souls are everywhere, we must equally accept the fact that spirits are too. Thus, we cannot deny the existence of spirit without denying the existence of souls. So here, of course, it's a question of vocabulary. Spirits, again, here it's with lowercase s at the beginning. In France, it's esprit with high case E. Well, I think we have commented this, not last time, but the last but one. We need just to understand better. And souls are used more when the spirit is incarnated. And spirit is used for designating what we will become the day we will discarnate or discarnate. Okay. So that is where we make the differences, and this is enabling us to understand we cannot deny the existence of spirit without denying the existence of soul. I would even say, correct a little bit. He's right. If we deny the existence of spirit, we have to deny the existence of souls, or at least we have to deny the survival of the souls to what we call the death. Okay, so this is also part of these fundamental assumptions, base teachings of the Spiritist body of knowledge. But through mediumship, we see that the spirits are here. They come, they knock on the door. Hey, I'm not dead. I'm still survive, beloved ones, and so on. Or people spirits who say, no, I was incarnated not so long ago, and you will also come back to the spirit's world. So they are unanimously confirming this. Okay, so That's why also it's, I think in the next chapter we will see this a little bit better, is you lose your time talking about mediumship to a person which does not believe in having a soul, okay? Because the person which is purely materialist, who do not believe having a soul, for him, when you die, everything is finished. Even if the soul is a produce of the brain, when you die, there is nothing anymore. There is no brain, so there is no soul anymore. So the first step is to convince the person, which is denying the existence of a soul, you have a soul. You have a lot of phenomenon around you, emancipations of the soul, dreams, inspiration, intuition, starting by the soft faculties that everybody admits, to convince this person having a soul. And before this, you lose your time talking about mediumship because the person will absolutely not believe in it. Person maybe believe in telepathy, for instance, that two souls incarnated can communicate to each other. But once dead, then finished. To communicate with a soul, with a spirit, they will absolutely deny it. So that's why in all this, we see the way to how we can make all these teachings, or we shall make these teachings according to the rigorous logic, and how also what we shall check before we talk with someone or we try to convince someone about something, to proceed in a logical way, let's say so. And that is, by the way, a big problem of Spiritists. Because when we talk publicly or in YouTube or wherever, if we talk to Spiritists, it's one thing. But if a materialist is listening to us, he's saying, this guy is completely crazy. We are not on the same plane. We do not, there is no way they can understand us if we stay in these notions only between Spiritists. So we shall also from time to time talk about the ABC, about the fundamentals, in order to enable those persons also to think from the beginning, And that is also why we should, elitize, go to complex subject among Spiritists, yes, but when we talk to a larger audience, we should also stay, be capable to recall the basics. So let's go to item number 3. Of course, all this is no more than a theory that is more rational than any other, but it is a theory that contradicts neither reason nor science. Okay? Whilst the theory of heaven, hell, special creation, eternal punishment, and so on, is also a theory. But that theory, or that dogma from the traditional religion, is contradicting reason and science, whilst Spiritist body of knowledge is always seeking this to be in line with reason, logic, common sense, and also science. Spiritists should never ever say that the earth is flat, for instance. Albeit there are a lot of people still believing in this. No, if the science demonstrated reasonably and turned around and whatever, showing that the earth is spherical, Spiritists will follow all this, what has been established by science. Okay. And this theory, the Spiritist body of knowledge, has this as a constraint to remain compatible with science. Now you may say, okay, but science is denying the existence of the soul, of the spirits. Yes, but is denying demonstrating? No, and it becomes more and more obvious that this denial is not based on a demonstration that the soul does not exist. It's more a dogmatic position of the science itself. Science is criticizing the religions for the dogmas, but having science itself also dogmas like this one. Nothing exists beyond the matter, and the soul does not exist. This has never ever been demonstrated. Okay. So when Kardec talks about science here, it's what has been really demonstrated by science and not just opinions or statements. You know, today, in order to avoid sometimes admitting the existence of the soul, you have theories like multiverse. There are an infinity of universes. This is an hypothesis that we can find in science. But okay, is there a demonstration of this infinity of universe? It may even exist. Spiritism is not denying that. But you see, they are doing an hypothesis which is much more audacious, much more, how can I say that, difficult to demonstrate than simply taking the hypothesis. We have something else than just matter in the human being is not limited to a physical body, to a material body. Okay. And furthermore, states Kardec, it is corroborated by facts and is sanctioned by both logic and experience. And we have found these facts in the phenomenon of Spiritist manifestation, which thus have provided us with patent proof of the existence and survival of the soul. Yes, so this is Spiritist body of knowledge is based on facts. The tables are moving, are levitating without any mechanical, physical action on it. The tables are even answering questions and in a very rational way. Okay, so these are the facts. And what is the reasoning we can do based on these facts? It's an effect which must have a cause. And one of the hypotheses, even the facts themselves stated, we are the souls of humans who died before you. So the facts themselves brought the explanation. Even this hypothesis of the soul was not done a priori by Kardec. It was coming out of the facts themselves. Okay. And it is absolutely rational. So there is nothing irrational, except when the only problem, the most problem giving most resistance is it contradicts a dogma. So church is resisting against Spiritism because Spiritism body of knowledge is contradicting the dogmas of religion. And science is resisting against Spiritism because Spiritism is contradicting the scientific dogma that nothing else exists but matter and that the soul does not exist. But okay, if we are right, they will end up accepting us, like the church ended up accepting that the earth is round and not flat, and that it is the earth turning around the sun and not the opposite, So it's a question of time, and we will get there. Nonetheless, there are many people whose belief does not go beyond this point. They believe in the existence of souls and consequently in the existence of spirits, but they deny the possibility of communicating with them because they say immaterial beings cannot interact with matter. This is an argument we find even in philosophy. In philosophy about ontology, there are several hypotheses like dualism. Dualism is there is matter and soul, and monism is matter and soul are the same, are of the same essence. And the problem of the dualism in philosophy is exactly what Kardec is raising here. If spirit is of different essence than the matter, how can spirit act on matter? If it's a different essence, it cannot interact. So these questions are still valid today, even in the philosophy, Of course, the Spiritist body of knowledge is a little bit more complex than just a monistic view or dualistic view, because there are other elements like the spiritual body or the perispirit. There's also God somewhere in all this. There is also vital fluid. So it's much more than just one or two elements. It's much more complex than that. And I think that there is no philosophical concept nowadays in mainstream philosophy that can explain the Spiritist body of knowledge, because as well science as well philosophy are deeply influenced by this current paradigm, materialistic paradigm, and they are somehow self-limiting or limiting themselves, which makes them very difficult to make a concept of something which goes out of this materialist paradigm. Munir?
Hi, Charles. Yes, I was thinking about this dualism because I saw someone actually supporting it very strongly. But if we think that we accept that we are souls in a physical body, I mean, we're spirit incarnated in a physical body, this spirit, an entity of a different essence, is manifesting itself in matter. So there is a way for a spirit, which is of a different essence, manifest itself in the material world. Why not, once we depart from the physical body, still in one way or another be able to interact with matter? Not exactly in the same way that we do when we are, incarnated. I'm expressing myself. You have my ideas. They don't come from my physical body. They come from my spirit. So this entity of a different essence is manifesting itself in the physical world. I can, destroy things, create things. And so why not have the same, but in a different process, of course, but the same possibility of, spirits manifesting themselves or communicating at least in the physical world.
Exactly, but again, when you talk about spirit or soul with a scientist, you have to be careful, because he will not contest the spirit, but in his conception, the spirit is a produce of our brain. You talk about a spirit which is independent of the brain, and he will talk about a spirit which is produced by your brain. So that's why, in his logic, he will say, no, this is an argument that spirit is indeed the producer of our brain, because so he will say that this conception is answering better to this question of how can spirit interact with the matter if it's of different essence, of this fundamental question of dualism, But again, Kardec says there are facts. The table is levitating. There is no rope. Nobody is pushing, lifting, nothing. The table is levitating without any identified material action. Okay, so it is a fact. So please go, scientist, and explain that. He will say it's impossible. Go and look at it. It's really starting from the beginning. And this is how Kardec started. So he did not stop and spend his whole life investigating why the table is moving. He went much beyond. He pushed all the consequences. Otherwise, the Spiritist body of knowledge would not exist. We would not be here to talk about it. We would just be here in trying to understand how a table can levitate, And we would not have all this consoling effect, all the mediumship, all this solidarity between souls, knowing that we have a guardian angel or a spiritual mentor or whatever, So this is exactly the difficult step to be done that we did, but we have to be humble and understand that a lot of people are still about half of the humanity, maybe a little bit less in some countries now, have difficulties to make this step.
Yeah, but you see, there are some evidences, and Kardec, he's presenting a theory, but then he will adds experience and phenomena to this theory to see, if it can sustain itself or not. But what we see regarding the soul is many cases we hear of people where the brain is basically dead, in inverted commas, no brain activity. But the person describes the scene in the operating theater or around, in details, to the point of saying, no, you left my ring in that drawer. How do you know? You weren't aware of anything. So how can you describe what happened during surgery if your brain was dead, basically? So people start to have evidence that there's more activity beyond the physical brain. But the answer normally is, well, yes, it is a fact. I have no explanation for that. Full stop.
But first, at least it's a first step to recognize the authenticity of the fact. And this is also why NDEs are very important and why it's so, it's much more popular than Spiritist body of knowledge itself. NDEs, when you have a congress in south of France, you have tens of thousands of people participating to it. It's exactly because of this. There is no blood, no oxygen, nothing. Your brain is flat, no electrical activity, and you have amazing, huge experiences. It's a couple of seconds or maybe maximum minutes that this is, and you have the impression of having seen many things and the total different notion of time. So, okay, this is what shall be explained without admitting the existence of the soul. And that's why I think we should even more communicate about NDEs, because it's a very strong evidence of the existence of something else than just matter. Liz?
Hi, guys. I just was going to reinforce, Charles, what you said about people thinking that the brain is the source of the consciousness and everything. I see more and more, people nowadays, they don't talk about the mind anymore. People say, oh, my brain is telling me to do this. My brain is forcing me to do, my brain is coming from my brain. So nowadays, there is no mind anymore. That the question of mind, where mind is, it is kind of, dead, really. It's all according to the brain. And I feel like a bit of a person that is slow, in small little bits, trying to fight a little bit this idea, because just yesterday we said, in my mind, we use this word and now it's only the brain. That is so upsetting, I find. And then it puts us a little bit more distant from, being a more spiritualized society in general, isn't it? Because we live in such a materialistic time, and even the religions, they are very materialistic. Like God answering to you means that you are going to have a better job, earn more money, having more success financially, or having the man or the woman of your life. So things like that, it makes me feel really upset. But I think as a spiritist, we must, wherever we are, just remain firm, how can I say? And kind of, maybe raise questions, because there are more and more, as Moni said, research on the matter. And the last thing that I noticed watching a documentary, I can't remember what. Sorry, guys, I watch lots of documentaries, and is about people collecting experiences of how children came about to them, and some very spiritual experiences. And, it's not only about near-death experiences and like end-of-life experiences or children remembering things, but it's also like experiences from mothers before they got pregnant. It's kind of very interesting how these experiences are being catalogued and really taking it seriously for some scientists that really see, like Kardec saw in his time, that there is something here that we must pay attention, and there is more than what our eyes, can see.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for this, Liz. Indeed. Well, I think we will get there. I mean, there are more and more evidences, and I think it's a public opinion who will drive this step, or this jump or quantum jump or however you want to call it, from changing of paradigm. And indeed, we have already, I think the people who are really not believing that there is anything are only today a third of the population. So I would say a third is convinced, a third is convinced that there is nothing, and the other third is, maybe not sure. But once, it's only when you look, for instance, a scientific guy talking to someone who had NDE experience. The guy will say, no, your brain this, your brain that. And the guy which had the experience is just laughing. You can tell me whatever you want. I have seen it. I have lived it. And if the scientist insists, one of the reactions is the rejection of the scientific authority. So this is one big problem we have today. Anti-vax, for instance, movements or stuff like that, they are coming through the fact that there is a lot of lobby, which is true, and that the scientists, they are lacking disinterestedness and objectivity. They are not neutral in what they may have a lot of knowledge. Even the research and development is financed by economical interests. There are a lot of problems today like this, which is inducing the people. No, they are all bought by the labs and big pharma or whatever. And this is a problem we have. Nowadays, and the best answer that the Spiritist body of knowledge can bring is, best in this is absolute disinterestedness. And this is why Spiritist body of knowledge, or Spiritist movement, we are always following this disinterestedness, personal and also financial disinterestedness, in particular for mediumship. Let's continue a little bit. So interaction between soul and body. This doubt results from ignorance of the true nature of spirits, about which they generally have a wrong idea by considering them to be abstract, vague, and undefined being, which is not true. Before going any further, let us consider the spirit in its union with the body. You see, Kardec, okay, let's start thinking about this. The spirit is in the principal being of this union, for the spirit is the thinking being that survives death. The body is no more than an accessory for the spirit, an envelope, a garment that it abandons after having worn it. Besides this material envelope, the spirit possesses another, a semi-material envelope, which connects it to the first. At death, the spirit abandons the body, but not the second covering, which we call the perispirit. This semi-material envelope has a human form and comprises for the spirit a fluidic, vaporous body, although invisible to us in its normal state, still possesses some of the properties of matter. The spirit is therefore not a simple abstraction, but a confined and circumscribed being, which would only need to become visible and tangible in order to resemble to a human creatures. Why couldn't it interact with matter? Because of the fluidity of its body? But isn't it among the most rarefied fluids, such as electricity, for example, and those that we consider the most imponderable, that we encounter the most powerful motive forces? Can't imponderable light cause a chemical reaction in ponderable matter? We do not yet understand the inner nature of the perispirit, but we might imagine it as being comprised of electrical substance of some other kind of matter just as subtle. Or some other kind of matter just as subtle. Then why couldn't it have the same properties as electricity when directed by the will? So it's a little bit long, but I didn't want to cut the reasoning of Kardec because it would have made the thing more complicated. So let's come a little bit back. So spirit is something purely theoretical, or is it something real? Kardec is saying it is something real. Okay. He says spirit in his union with the body, and reminding, as it has been taught in the Spirit's book, that we have three things in the human: physical body, soul, and the spiritual body, which is intermediary between both. Kardec is remembering here, where is the intelligence? The intelligence is in the soul. So who is the boss in these three pieces? Is it the body? No. Is it the spiritual body? Also not. It is the soul. The soul is really what governs us, where lies the memory, the intelligence, and whatever. You have several authors like Herculano Pires, for instance, who is stating this very clearly in his book. We have three things, but the intelligence is in the soul. Okay, and Kardec is then explaining how is this interaction or this link done between the soul and the physical body. It is through the spiritual body, which is, he's telling, semi-material. So there is no other word to describe this today. So semi-material is not material. All what is material can be measured or detected or weighted or touched or whatever through our material senses or instruments. But it is semi-material. So in its normal state, it is not ponderable, it cannot be detected, it cannot be weighted, And Kardec is then making a parallel, which is today, I would say, a little bit outdated, because at that time we must remember that science did not know the exact nature of electricity nor of light. Okay, today we understand it better, and both electricity and light are today considered as material. The lights are made out of particles called photons, which can be either a particle or a wave, this wave-particle duality. And electricity is also understood as the movement of electrons or ions or whatever, particles which have an electrical charge. Okay, so this parallel he's doing is a little bit outdated. It will not convince the scientists of today, which understand better the nature of electricity and of light. Nevertheless, as well as we did not understand at that time how electricity and light is working, we still do not understand today how this interaction, what is this semi-material body? What is it? Kardec is very clear, he says it is matter, but in a density which is less than what we call usually the matter. Okay, so the matter does not exist in the density which is characteristic to the matter, which is basically Mendeleev table from hydrogen to uranium, or the table of particles, because all this is material. It is something beyond that. and that science did not yet start investigating. Science also did not demonstrate it does not exist. And Kardec is exactly stating that is the way which enables interaction between the soul and the matter. And today there are some progress in this. The theories of Penrose and Hamerhoff about Bose-Einstein condensation in nanostructures which are in our cells, in our brains. There is also a scientist in Brazil called, what's her name? It's escaping me now, which is also complementing a little bit this theory. So science is starting investigation how this interaction can happen between the soul and the body. But by far, we are not there yet. Camila?
No, actually, two things. One thing I'd like to share, and another I would like to make a question because you can help me and just to understand you better, right? The question was like you said about the mind and the perispirit and everything, right? In some place, I think in this book as well, you speak about like the when we sleep and like there has a memory. I don't know the way that I try to make sense in my mind is like when we sleep and our soul go out and we get up and we because that is confused because it's the memory of the spirit is not in the memory in the physical body, right? And the same thing is very similar sometimes when in the medium section, right? When we do the thing. So I would like if you can explain that better. You have a lot of knowledge. You can bring more nice and curious information. And the other thing about what you're saying about this, the material, I remember that when I read in the spiritual book, what is material, I was very impressed because in that time was the atom, right? After we know that it has the quarks that is smaller than atom, right? When I was a kid, atom was the minimal part of material. And in France, we have, not in France, we have that thing that they put two particles and run a big circle and shock very small atoms because we believe that in the space was empty, in the perfect emptiness. But in the spiritual book, the spiritual say, for you now in this way, but it has no emptiness. The divine material is in all places, right? Has no emptiness, something like that. And they saw a small light. So they also, the scientists say, okay, so it has no perfect emptiness as well. So I make the link with that experimental thing. It was very interesting. Did I want to read again? Because it was when I read, I was like, oh, that stuff. It was very nice.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Einstein said that matter is a kind of a condensation of energy. There is an equivalence between energy and matter. A lot of things have changed in the meantime. But again, we are not there yet. Science is not at the perispirit yet, at this semi-matter. Nevertheless, it is interacting. So again, I think where we are coming closer is the scientists who are studying hypotheses like super luminous matter, so matter which is not limited by the speed of light, because that's one of the laws of matter, or this quantic reaction in the nanostructure which exists in the living being, in the cells, as I told, Penrose and Hamerhoff, and this Brazilian lady which also contributed to this. So we will get there, but we are not there yet. And you told exactly about dreams. Of course, this has been studied by Freud, the inconscient, the subconscient. Not everything comes to our conscience. There is a lot behind. And like in the Spiritist body of knowledge, we know that we had past life. We don't remember of our past lives. All the intelligence, all the characteristics of our soul cannot come through this material filter, which is our brain. And you have even people which are deficient or which have Alzheimer or which are in coma, for instance, where the spirit is here, but the physical body is not allowing anymore materialization of the thoughts and bringing it out, you know. So all this is encompassed by the Spiritist body of knowledge, and all these discoveries done by science are absolutely not contradicting. At the opposite, are more confirming all these discoveries science has made in the interval between Kardec and us. But our time is running, so it's very interesting discussion. I think this could be very long. We are not understanding everything here. I saw Rafael is here, joined us, so maybe it's time to hand over to him to get some fresh news from our dear Rafael. Or maybe somebody else will do the vibrations.
I just want to make a quick announcement just to remind people that today, 6 p.m. London time, there is a talk organized by BUS, Value in Life is called, by Edith Paixel. This is a guy, he does beautiful work in suicide prevention. So I think you've seen the flyer, but I can put in the group here. So if you're interested, it's online, 6 p.m. UK time, okay?
And I'll do the vibration today.
Thank you, Pablo.